All right, guys. So we got some Japanese news for y'all today, since Deadball TV has somehow become the official go-to news source for everything Asian football. And hey, I ain't mad about it. Let me pull this up so you guys can see this.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry about that endless vortex. So Hajime Moriyasu has signed an extension to be Japan's manager until the next World Cup cycle, and apparently it's the first time this has ever happened. Now, I'm not totally surprised by this part right here because Japan hasn't really done anything spectacular
jack shit.
at
Yeah.
a World Cup. I mean, how many times have they made to the knockouts? 3?
I was going to say 2. In 2002,
2010 too. Okay, so 3 times.
2010. Okay.
3 times. So there we go. That's the big news. Now, Jake, how do you feel about this? Because you and I have talked about Moriyasu a few times here on the pod. Are you surprised?
I'm not super surprised. I mean, they're trying to ride the wave on their recent 2022 success and their upsets, I guess. I think you and I don't really view them as upsets, but I think it's fair to say that average viewer would view them as massive and colossal upsets against these European powerhouses.
I think we still see them, or at least I still saw them as upsets, but not like earth-shattering results. You know what I mean? Like they were still the underdog, but it wasn't like
I think people saw them as
who saw this coming. You know,
yeah,
it's
like holy shit! Like this has never happened before. It couldn't have been predicted. Like you know, the money line was so high on this. You know, yada yada yada. I feel like a 4-year contract extension is a lot. I feel just in the sports realm in general for not having a lot of results. I mean, the dude only has a 60% win rate with Japan since taking over in 2018. That's not stellar. It's not bad. It's not stellar, I'd say. I think it would have been. And what did transfer mark have?
We're going to go to that right now just so people can see the live things.
Yeah.
You can see on the right side right here, everybody. This is his
I said 60%.
aggregate.
What is it?
It doesn't give you a percentage, but I mean, he's averaging over 2 points per game as a manager, which I looked, and I believe in the history of Japanese managers, that is the highest. Most of the guys were about anywhere from 1.5 to 1.9 points per game.
So it's a multi-headed argument to me where you definitely need a coach that starts today, starts in 2022, you know, the last day of 2022, as we're recording this, and is going to be the manager up into 2026, I think, especially for a team like Japan, where they have a lot of talent on the roster, you know, talent that has helped them get, 2 points a game. You know, I think one can make the argument that that's not fully on Moriyasu.
Absolutely.
You know, that it isn't his master tactics that gets that 2 points, but you need someone who is familiar with the troops out there and leading them into battle. You don't want to have I was going to say Qatar, but maybe, that's a very unorthodox and I think is very unlikely for a manager to come in, in a short period of time and do something with the national team like that. So I think for a short answer, I'm not surprised that he was appointed and that he was reinstated, extended. Yeah. But it does feel like a long time, but I don't really know who else they would call up for the job if he didn't get it.
Yeah, I feel like that is probably the biggest pro argument that I've seen for Moriyasu from like different like football boards and everything is like, who do you bring in to replace him? And I understand that, and I also think if Moriyasu is not Japanese, I seriously doubt he gets this extension, because there's a point to be made, and you already said it, is that Moriyasu's done a pretty good job, but he's done a pretty good job with the best Japanese talent pool of all time. I mean, you could probably combine the best Japanese 11 from like the 60s through like 2002 and make a best 11 from all those teams, and it still would not be as good as the current Japanese national team. I mean, that is how stacked. That might be a hot take. If you're Japanese and you're a historian for the football team, comment down below. But this is an absolutely stacked team, and I think if you break it down a little bit more, so I can show this again so we can see it. The whole transfer marked. These are pretty good. At a glance, it's really good. 41 wins, only 14 losses, which is a little high. I'm not gonna lie, but I went into this. So all these results right here, you can see me scrolling, right?
Yeah.
So his record against non-Asian opponents. So keep that in mind, and let's compare and contrast that to this. Record against non-Asian teams, 14 wins, 6 draws, 9 losses. So that's a not very good record. Now, it's probably the best record that Japan have ever had, again, because this team is so stacked. So, but I think that's important context. It's one thing to beat Mongolia 14-0, and it's another thing to go and play the South American teams on a frequent basis and do well, which he has not really done.
Right.
Are you or I want to conclude by saying, when we talk about tournament performance as well for Moriyasu, at the 2019 Copa America, they were pretty bad. They had 1 loss, 2 draws, bounced out in the group stage, finished last, I believe, in their group.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty bad showing. And the Asian Cup, they lose in the final to Qatar after pretty much blitzing their way through the final. I want to say they might have beaten Korea on penalties. I can't remember what the semifinal was. But that loss after the World Cup looks even worse after how bad Qatar were. And they lost 3-1. Like, they ate some goals in that game. And then in the World Cup, you and I talked about it in all our videos. You can go find those on the channel. It was like the greatest example of who Moriyasu is as a manager. Like, he can beat Spain and Germany, and then he bottles it against Costa Rica. And you could argue, I would argue, I watched the whole damn game, they should have beaten Croatia. But he's too conservative. Yep. He wanted the game to go to pens, it seems, which why would you want to go to pens with Croatia? They're pen gods. But that's what he decided to do, and they got spanked in the penalty shootout.
Right.
So, like, you're not shocked by it. Do you think it's the right decision?
Do I think it's the right decision? What?
To extend him.
I'm trying to think of arguments against it, but I think I'm still okay with it. I think it's the right decision.
I think the biggest argument against it is not winning that Asian Cup. I mean, all he's won is the EAFF E1, and we know that ain't nobody give a damn about that. So every Japanese manager ever has won the EAFF E1 championship because they're playing Hong Kong and China. Like, that's not an achievement. So what I would have done if I was the JFA president is I just would have extended him 2 years. Like to the end of the next Asian Cup.
That is, yes. That is what I think a realistic person would have done. Because, I think I had earlier mentioned that I think there is importance in having a national team manager who knows the squad and stays the same up into until the World Cup and any major competition, honestly, but especially the World Cup. 2 years is kind of the minimum amount of time I think you need, that you would commonly see, unless you're, I think I said Qatar earlier, unless you're Morocco, where you could turn it around in 9 months?
Like 6 or something, yeah.
Yeah, like even less. So I absolutely agree that signing him to a 2-year extension would have been a way better decision.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that if they beat Croatia and they make the quarterfinals for the first time in their history, do you think that would have warranted a 4-year extension?
Yeah, I think them making the knockouts already warranted Moriyasu's extension. I think people are very conservative and very nervous to, especially Japanese fans, and I would imagine the Japanese Football Association to try to change things up when, as we're talking about, they have the most star-studded squad they've ever assembled. And so if it's kind of worked, then, there might be a little inkling that, they can tweak out some of the kinks. I think they're going to stick with him, because of that reason.
Don't rock the boat too much kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Don't rock the boat too much, and, work on the things that you can. But, like I think they retrospectively look at their performance at Qatar, and they think that was a massive dub and further than anyone thought that they would go. And, I think you said it perfectly. Don't rock the boat because of that.
Dude, I don't know if it's a massive dub. It was a dub, but like, I don't know. I thought they were going to do it. And it's like when you get in that position against Croatia and then you go a goal up, it's like, it's the difference between looking at everything that's happened on paper and then like actually how it transpired. I feel.
Your opinion and my opinion are going to be completely different than an average football fan. And I would imagine an average Japanese citizen, where they're like, they don't know shit about football. They don't know what's going on. And they see that their national team makes it into the knockout stages. Like that's a massive dub for them. And I think that general national sentiment more is aligned with an average fan versus like actual football connoisseurs such as us.
I've seen the few Japanese Twitter accounts that are in English. They all seem against the idea. And I told you when I was in Japan and I was talking to, guys in the soccer shops and everything, they were against Moriyasu. They didn't like him. They also didn't think they were going to make it out of their group. So, I mean, take that how you will. But it's kind of funny because I see a lot of like non-Japanese fans interacting with these tweets, like the one that I pulled up at the beginning of the video, being like, "Oh, of course, like Japan was so good at the World Cup," and I'm like, "Look, you get to have that opinion, but bro, you obviously have never seen a Japan game like before that."
There's a certain lens that you put on when you're talking about your team, especially your nationality, your national team. Like we're obviously not Japanese, but we like the team.
People don't know that though.
They certainly make me question it every single day that I read the comments.
I know. For real.
I'm like, maybe I am Japanese, like three generations back or something. But
I know.
Yeah, it's you put on a different lens. You put on your hater lens. Like I don't know of any sports fan who their favorite team or their national team where they're not pessimistic about them. It's hard to ride the wave. Like even, I'll bring it to college football. You talk to like a Bama fan, like an Alabama football fan, and they've been dominant for 12 years. But even when they lose a game, they're like, holy shit, we are so ass fire Saban.
Yeah.
Even though the guy's like arguably the GOAT behind Bear Bryant, if not the GOAT.
Yeah.
So it's it is interesting that the accounts you interact with that you can read, I guess, in English, they don't want them in.
Yeah. Well, some of them I have to hit that Google Translate, which the translation's not always great. But you know what? I wonder what Keisuke Honda said about this extension. Knowing him, he probably rolled out like a very supportive tweet. Probably because he wants that job one day. I bet he wants the job.
He needs to find a little more success with other managing positions.
If he gets Cambodia to the semifinal of the next Asian Cup, they're gonna come knocking on his door.
Oh, that would be a shocker.
Yeah, that would be a shocker. Dude, I don't know. I feel like even with this, we can wrap this up and switch to the next topic. But last thing I'll say is that Japan are obvious favorites for the next Asian Cup. It's in Qatar again, which is bullshit. I've already let my thoughts be known about that. I could see possibly if Japan lose though in like the round of 16 at the next Asian Cup that they might just sack him anyways. maybe.
Yeah.
Now, I know because he's a Japanese citizen, Japanese former player, and in Japanese society, usually you kind of would, I guess, honor the length of the contract. Again, I think if the display was truly embarrassing, I think the clamor for his head would be too much and they'd have to let him go.
Yeah. I mean, I look at their managerial list over the years, and a lot of their sackings seem to, I'd say, more often than not, follow international tournaments, especially the World Cup.
The World Cup, almost every
Yeah.
time, yeah.
Um, at least with their longest lasting managers. It's yeah, and I don't know. And I'd be curious to get opinions from, like, is there more pressure on him because he is Japanese to stay on, and that, like, that's a sense of national pride um for both him and the federation, or do the Japanese fans not care and they just want someone to get them to the quarters?
Yeah. I bet they care a little bit. I feel like every single fan base has the romantic feeling or desire for their national team to be of their nationality.
Yeah,
I think it just means a little bit more. So,
for sure.
and I bet that adds more pressure on him as well because he knows the ins and outs of Japanese culture, what it means to everybody. It's not like he can claim ignorance of some of the expectations like a foreigner could who like doesn't speak Japanese. If they get like an Italian in there, or like Aguirre, the Mexican guy, used to be the manager for like 10 games or something. They're not going to expect him to know everything.
Right.
He can't even read the press. They literally could not read the Japanese newspapers, but Moriyasu can. He probably knows everything that's said about him.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know, dude. I feel like if they win the Asian Cup, I feel like the loss against Croatia will be forgiven. And that might sound harsh, but I truly thought that they should have won that game. And I think most diehard Japanese fans would say the same. They should have won the game. And it would have been a huge dub.